be recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel. We'll send a link to that to each of the participants. We'll also provide it to you. Again, if you would prefer to receive it via email, you just let us know. We'll be happy to do that. We're going to ask you to please hold all of your questions until the very end of the presentation. If you cannot stay for the whole presentation, feel free to place a question into the chat, and at the end, we'll read and answer those chat questions first before moving into a discussion. I'm going to ask everyone, please remain on mute unless you are presenting. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Althea Lewis.
All right, thanks, Gretchen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Alex, you need to please go to the next slide.
Yeah, Alex, drive the slides, please. We're having a problem.
Next slide, please.
Alex? Okay, so as Gretchen mentioned, I am heading the county's Program Management Office, or PMO. And just for clarity, the PMO has oversight of the Surtax program and projects, the Surtax funded projects, not just the ones led by the municipalities. So part of our mission is broader than what we're doing with regards to the municipalities. We are here to essentially optimize the value that's delivered to Broward County by the Surtax funds, right? So that means we're going to enable and ensure alignment of all Surtax funded projects to the committed goals and objectives of the Surtax program. And we are here to oversee, again, not just with municipalities, also we are doing this for the county, that we adhere to the operating policies and principles and guidelines of the county, and we deliver consistency and predictability in the county's execution. As I said, we're not just here for the municipalities. So specific to the county, the PMO is here to lead consistency and predictability in how we execute and how we manage projects within the county. So essentially the PMO is put in place to realize the county's oversight mandate. And as a reminder, by statute, the county is responsible for the money, the Surtax funds, right? The allocation of it and ensuring that the funds as expended are consistent with that statute. So as I go forward through this presentation, I want us to remember that that's what the PMO is trying to do, is to execute on that mandate by statute with regards to municipal projects led by the municipalities. Next slide, Alex. So what are the expected outcomes? And again, this is not just specific. I'm just sharing with you what we have listed as all the expected outcomes from a PMO. So we essentially, I think everybody's on the same page with this. We want to improve outcomes for all projects funded by the Surtax. And by that, we know we need improved project planning, whether it's be it in the definition of the scope and the management, or actually how we plan and execute, adherence to committed timelines and costs. And you will see this later, and you've seen it probably in the draft ILAs. We're going to be tracking for each project some of these project performance metrics that we execute well, we execute on time, we execute on budget. The PMO also supports proactive issue management, the identification of potential risks, and the preparation, analysis, and management of such risk and issues. And for the county, the Program Management Office, by tracking the outcomes and how well we manage projects, we will be able to help identify within the county any gaps we have in skills and training, right? We have some training in-house, and I also wanted to make the offer that what we're looking at is any in-house training or training we have purchased that we may be able to make available to any municipalities that are interested. But that's, we're looking at that, and I'll be able to share more later. Ultimately, the PMO is here to increase the returns on our Surtax investment, our meaning Broward County. Next slide. So one of the primary objectives I have for today is to introduce, as a result of what I've said before, a new role that we have called the Municipal Project Management Liaison role. That role is being filled by a fairly new hire to the county, Roxanne Riggs. But Roxanne comes to us from DOT, FDOT, and she has 20+ years experience in this domain. She's a civil engineer, licensed PE, very experienced. So her role specifically, reporting into the PMO, will be to help execute that oversight function by monitoring execution of the municipal-led projects and leveraging her expertise and experience only when requested to support municipalities in their role as the accountable party for project execution. Some of the key activities Roxanne, this liaison role, will execute, again, representing any status and issues that she gets from the municipalities to the monthly PMO meetings, reviewing with each of the municipalities their project plan of record. And by plan of record, what I mean there is with the ILA, when you are requesting and when you have, when you execute the ILA, you are required to submit a project plan. But I'm fully acknowledging the fact that for a lot of projects, between execution of the ILA and actual solicitation, if the municipality has to go outside to engage a consultant or a contractor, that the plan is likely to change based on dialogue or input from the consultant or the contractor. So that revised plan that will now become the committed plan is what we're calling the plan of record. That's what we will track compliance with. Not the early plan that was probably a proposal, a draft, etc. And what we expect, of course, in the plan of record, it's typical what's in a project plan, right? All the major milestones, key activities and duration, beginning and end, obviously, and any other triggers that we need to identify for execution. Another key activity will be guiding the authorized municipal designee, be that city engineer, director of public works, city manager, whoever is the lead for the Surtax funded projects, guiding that person, he or she, through the county's execution oversight process, specifically going over the execution compliance requirements, just to make sure that the liaison and that municipal PM, project manager, are on the same page. And we know ahead of time what to expect, when to expect, and how. As I said before, on request, the municipality, that lead, may request guidance from this liaison role. As I said, she's very experienced, comes to us well burdened with a lot of experience and knowledge in this area, but also is a county employee, so we'll be able to provide some guidance. We will not be engaging in activities for solicitation between the municipalities and their contractor or consultant, and I'll speak more to that later. So execution oversight, and on request, the support to cross the finish line. And I'm using the term cross the finish line because that's the charter here, for us to be of assistance, to support, to do what we need to help the municipalities cross that finish line, be that the construction project, to get it done and on time and on budget. All right, next slide. So some of the guiding principles for the program management office with respect to these municipal-led projects. Again, can't say it often enough, we are delivering on the county's oversight. However, we acknowledge the municipality is accountable. The municipality is a project manager. The municipality is accountable for compliance to the project funding agreement or interlocal agreement that the municipality has signed with the county. The municipality is accountable for the project, the planning, the execution, the management, and solicitation, right? So that's acknowledged. So what we're committing to is that this liaison role, we're not an overlord. We're not going to overstep. So the liaison will not interact with any way with the municipality's solicitation process and or its consultants and contractors. And the liaison will not perform any CEI functions, no site inventory, no review of the contractor invoices, etc. The liaison cannot be perceived as a project manager of the municipal-led projects. And again, making mention of the POR being the plan of record being the basis for this execution oversight. Next. Some of our operating assumptions for clarity and for continuity. Many of you may recall some time ago, the MAP administration team had asked for the municipalities to identify a single point of contact, a SPOC. And so we in the PMO, we want to hold to that discipline to help both the SPOC in the municipality and ourselves so that we have consistency and we have continuity by making sure that the municipal SPOC is included and aware of all communications between the municipality and the PMO with regards to the liaison role and project execution. So there is one person in the municipality who is aware of all things, knows what's happening at all times, and can speak to that. Because I think if we don't do that, then we do the SPOC a disservice. There is already a map portal, many of you are aware, but we are working to expand the functionality of that map portal to be all encompassing so that all submittals made in the future to MAP and to the PMO will be made through this portal. And we will share more about that later, but I said that's probably about 12 to 16 weeks away. But we'll be able to use the same portal. The municipalities will be able to use the same portal to do all functions and do all submittals with respect to what MAP requires, the legal draft reviews with the county attorney's office and with the program management office. I've said enough on the plan of record, I think, already. And as I said, we have common municipal submittals with attestation. And that's, if any of you are familiar, that's similar to what I know the county does with respect to FDOT. When we submit, we attest to the fact that that which we have submitted is correct, is factual. Next slide. So specifically to the municipal project management liaison role, the key engagement activities. And on the left, the left column, we have the PFA phase, and that's how we're structuring it for ease and to be consistent. So where we have concept there, think of that as you, the municipality, while you're thinking through internally as to what projects you want to request funds for, how you want to approach it, etc. We are not involved in that. That's strictly internal. Post the project funding agreement, post the execution of that agreement, the liaison role will set a meeting with the municipality, as I said before, to review. This is where we are setting the table here to make sure we are on the same page with respect to compliance requirements as they relate to the project execution. We're not doing all the other compliance issues and requirements that the MAP team leads, strictly execution. Starting in this green shaded area, these are the core functions for that liaison role. Pre-solicitation, again, on request, and this would be written request. If you submit an email to Roxanne, you can ask her to provide any guidance with respect to proactive issue management, things to look out for in the solicitations you plan to pursue. But she will not be involved in the solicitation itself and post-solicitation in any of your interactions with your consultants or your engaged contractors. Post the award or notice to proceed, there will be again, we're expecting an update with the plan of record that will be reviewed with the municipalities, and any other modifications to the project plan will be made at that time. Project execution, that's an ongoing function. That's the core of what the liaison role does. Reviews progress with the municipalities, as a preview to their submittals to the monthly PMO meetings, review, do the site visits. And this is not every week, but probably will be coordinated with the municipalities and aligned with key milestones. This is just visual verification of progress. I think of it as 3 stools. The liaison role is using site visits, the meetings with the municipalities, and the municipalities' status reports to accurately assess where the municipalities are with respect to project execution. Some of these activities we'll see later, and you would have seen already in the ILA draft, include that we're tracking from the PeopleSoft system in the county, based on the invoices submitted from the municipalities, what we call the burn rate. That is the actual spend versus the planned spend. Are we ahead or are we behind the planned spend rate? Are we on time with the milestones? At project completion, there will be confirmation of that completion milestone, probably with a site visit, just to say the project, per its initial objectives and expected outcomes, was delivered. And post-contract closeout, there will be a post-mortem review with the MAP administration team as part of the county's process. Next slide. Again, just to get a little more clarity with regards to the site visits, it's only a visual affirmation for the liaison role of project process and verification of completion. What it is not, it's not a verification of site inventory. We're not doing asset management. We're not involved in CEI functions. We're not negotiating any issues or issue resolution. We're not doing approval of means and methods, right? We are not the PM for the project. So it's strictly a visual affirmation of process. Next slide, Alex. This template, and again, what I have in the lower left, the format is subject to change. I would emphasize, we just focus on the information that's laid out here. We are trying to pursue a standard tool that would make it easier to provide this information. Hence what I'm saying, don't focus on the form, but focus on the content. This would be the information we expect, all or in parts, to present monthly. And this is not just for the municipal-led projects. The county Surtax funded projects are also expected and will be providing monthly status with this kind of information. What I have in the arrow, where I have the arrows, those are identifying key things to take away. In the upper right-hand corner, overall status, the legend is at the bottom of the chart. Green, we're on track, right? We may have a couple of slips here, but generally we are on track. The project is being well managed. What would be yellow would be a delay but recoverable, right? And red would be some sort of project jeopardy, a critical delay that we don't see our way clear to work around, right? For the yellow and the green, the two data sets at the bottom, the issue and the proposed solutions, are critical with yellow and red status as an overall health of the project, where we would want the project manager or the project lead to identify what's the issue. Either it's a current or it's a predicted issue the project will have to face. And if possible, the proposed solution. What's going to happen to correct it? And especially with the recoverable delays. The project summary, these are what, as I know there in the paren, may include. So this would be what the project, the municipality and the PM, the project manager, in summary would want the MAP team, the county and their own leadership to take away. right? And that would include, the metrics on where we are with milestones, met, days over budget, burn rate, but the key takeaways, right? As I note there in the third bullet down, a Gantt chart. So it's possible to insert from the project plan a Gantt chart, and maybe you just put a marker for we are here today. So graphically, we could see what activities have been done, where are we with the remaining activities. But these are all suggestions as to what the overall progress summary could include. Next slide. Standard project milestones. Now, these are really, we know, of course, we're going to have primarily 3 different project types: planning, design, and construction projects. And again, we're not trying to be the overlord or to be too onerous here. Every project has a start and an end. So I think it's fair to say what we're focused on here are identification of interim milestones that we would want to see as we start tracking progress. For planning and execution, what we're assuming is that it's the consultant planner, or in construction, the consultant engineer or the engineer of record, who would provide, working with the municipality, the interim milestones. And the municipality would then consequently share the updated plan with the county, with the PMO, for us to track against those milestones, including start and end. When it comes to design, for the engineers on the call and those familiar with such projects, it's pretty much standard with design projects, not other than the start and the end. We at least would have 3 interim milestones, roughly 30%, 60, 90. 90 is complete but subject to change. And when the project is complete, no more change, that's the project end. The exception being, again, because we're mindful of, we are meeting monthly and some projects will be smaller than others. And we don't want to make this too burdensome. Where we can avoid that, we will. So the exception is for design projects under 250K and or with project durations of 6 weeks or less. It's no intermediate milestones. We'll just take start and end. If the duration is 6 weeks to 3 months, we'll require just at a minimum of 1 intermediate milestone determined by the municipality working with the engineer of record. But again, what we're expecting is that the engineer of record will be a lead in working with the municipalities if this is not an internal role to the municipality, what the critical activities and critical milestones. So as we see in construction, typically, not saying it has to be all the time, typically with construction, after the first CPM, critical path method, that's typically when the project plan is revised, created. And that is when we expect to receive what we're going to call the plan of record after the first CPM for construction projects, right? And again, I know there will be questions about this. And as I said, we will be taking, as Gretchen said earlier, we'll be taking questions at the end. I have to issue a disclaimer. I have a hard stop for this meeting, but Gretchen's team will be tracking questions, and we will follow up with the questions related to the PMO operations with each of the senders. Next slide. The contact information, myself, I lead the PMO. You have my email and my landline, and Roxanne Riggs, who is the Municipal Project Management Liaison. Next slide, Alex, next 2 slides. Next one. What we've added here is a sort of cheat sheet for the municipalities. I don't know how much of a cheat it is, but just a 1-page summary that you can extract from this presentation with respect to the PM liaison, the program management liaison role. What you, in each phase, as I shared before, of the ILA or the project funding agreement, from concept to contract closeout, what are the key things to expect and what we're expecting from the municipality project manager or project lead. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. Look forward to any follow-up questions you have and working with you. Thanks. Alex?
Thank you, Althea. Hello, my name is Alexander Mayorga, and I'll be talking about what can be expected from map administration and our monitoring activities. First of all, as part of operationalizing and providing support to the Oversight Board for performing their functions, our office is tasked with programmatic and financial performance monitoring. For this purpose, we will continue to work closely with municipalities and a multidisciplinary group that includes the PMO and legal counsel to ensure compliance with the project funding agreements. This monitoring includes efforts to maintain projects in track with the plan and also to provision of technical assistance, training, and workshops such as this. I want to try to speak louder. Once a PFA has been executed and when executing the project, municipalities also will have these roles. They will need to comply with the terms and conditions of the PFA, the project funding agreements. They will be responsible for project management and financial management of the project, carry out the solicitation process according to documentation approved by the Surtax Council legal team, and reporting accurately and timely. Contract administration will be a collaborative process involving map administration, the PMO, Surtax legal counsel, accounting, and the Office of Economic and Small Business Development. Contract managers are available to review project funding agreements with municipalities to facilitate compliance with terms and conditions, including the project descriptions and schedule, solicitation and procurement, deliverables, funding schedule, reporting requirements, and more details on these elements we will be addressing in the next few minutes. All of this information will also be found in the guidebook that we will be making available shortly, and you can review. There's a reference with the page numbering here. So when you have access to these slides, you can also follow with the guidebook. In executing the projects, municipalities have the options of soliciting, using an existing contract for services, or doing the project in-house. County approval is needed for the use of an existing contract or for the use of a solicitation bid. And all solicitations should specify the CBE goal assigned if applicable. And before the solicitations are presented to the city commissions for the review and final approval, the Surtax legal team needs to review and approve them to ensure compliance with the project funding agreements. Each project funding agreement will establish what the project deliverables are and will also delineate the acceptance criteria for each one. The project status and deliverable submission form is also going to be found in the guidebook in the Appendix B. And for project soliciting services, the deliverables timeline in the PFA will be modified once a plan of records is completed, such as in the events that Althea was mentioning not long ago. And now Lina Silva will continue with the other aspects of the monitoring that will be performed by us in the Mobility Advancement Program. Lina, please.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lina Silva, Program Project Coordinator, and I'll be finishing the contract administration and monitoring portion of this presentation. So one of the most important exhibits on your executed project funding agreements is going to be Exhibit B, which we're going to refer to as the funding schedule. This is going to vary for each project, so it's really important that once your PFA is fully executed, you pay close attention to this exhibit to fully understand the schedule for the proposed advances for each project. The funding schedule is going to determine how you can invoice the county. So depending on the phases or the deliverables, how often, and what the maximum not to exceed amounts are for each phase. After each advancement, you're going to need to submit a complete invoice before you get any additional advances. And our finance manager is actually going to go into detail regarding what your invoices should include. But at a minimum, a complete invoice needs to have the project financials attestation form, which needs to be signed by the CFO or the finance director. And it should include evidence of any actual expenditures, along with a list of full requirements that we're going to go through in the next section. So the next slide, please. So this slide talks about your reporting requirements and how often they need to be submitted. The audit report, for example, is only needed annually, and this is the city's most recent annual financial information. As previously discussed by the PMO, the performance metrics should be submitted monthly, and there's going to be limited exceptions for projects like design and planning, since they're not going to have as often of updates. But you should still use the PMO status report that was previously shown by Althea Lewis. Expenditures are to be submitted on the sample financial report, which is included in the PFA under Exhibit C. This reports expenditures on a quarterly basis and year to date. So reporting total funds, receipts expended on the project from all funding sources, all of that should be included in here. Your project schedule needs to be reported monthly on the PMO status report, including any adjustments and summary of progress. And then finally, if you have any material changes to the project or the project schedule, any impacts affecting the cost of the project or the overall performance, then these also need to be reported on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. So the reason that we wanted to focus this presentation on the key components of the PFA is to make sure that you as a city understand the terms and conditions of the contract, so that if you're submitting your reports on time and the project is on budget and on track and it's performing as it should be, then we really don't need to do any type of monitoring. Essentially, contract compliance monitoring will only occur as needed, and it's going to be on a case-by-case basis if we see that there's any indication that a specific project is not complying with the PFA. So in that case, monitoring can include any in-person, phone, virtual interviews and meetings, any desk audits, site visits, the review of any subcontracts or related items to the Surtax projects, and any relevant information, including financial documents, payroll, invoices, and such. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about the access requirements that is included in the PFA and the project funding agreement if a monitoring is needed, and where the county would request access to any type of project-related documents, including records, job sites, permits, inspections, and any type of documents that are related to the project and the performance and financial reports. And if you look at your project funding agreement, it goes into full detail as far as what requirements will be needed. So next slide, please. So as part of monitoring, the Oversight Board can request to review any information pertaining to a Surtax funded project, including the review of any funding received and expenses made. They can request for a performance audit at any point during the contract, and this could also extend up to 5 years after the completion of the project or resolution of any audit findings. Next slide, please. So here we have our contact information. If you have any questions related to your Surtax projects, Alex and I are here to help. Definitely feel free to contact us if you need any type of clarification or if you need us to guide you to anyone. And next up, we have our finance manager, Margaret Daly-Johns. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lena. My name is Margaret Daly-Johns. As Lena said, I'm the finance manager here for the Mobility Advancement Program. And today I'm going to be discussing the financial oversight as far as these projects, these Surtax projects. Next slide, Alex. So in general, financial oversight and monitoring focuses on reviewing fiscal practices, reviewing expenditures of funds, including invoicing and billing review. Now, as it pertains to the Surtax funds, financial monitoring ensures that appropriate use of these funds are based on eligibility criteria. So that's really important, and it's actually in the Florida statute 2.212.0551D and section 3 of the Global Interlocal Agreement as amended. And in line with the financial monitoring that we're requiring, all surtax funds received and expended by the municipality is subject to review and audit. Next slide, please, Alex. Now, as far as the accounting for the surtax funds, it is extremely important to have a separate general ledger fund or account established to record all surtax related transactions. Now, remember that any surtax expenditures that are incurred, they must have the proper and complete supporting documentation. So the reason for establishing separate funds, recording all the expenditures appropriately, is to ultimately have the ability to generate a surtax financial report. And that report you will submit to the Mobility Advancement Program Administration on a quarterly basis. Next slide, please. So as far as leverage, you'll also need to keep track of this. And essentially what this is, say there are other funding sources received for your specific surtax project, including your own municipal funds. This information should be included on your quarterly financial report. The non-surtax funding should be specified. In other words, you have to provide the funding source and the amount that is being funded by the funding source. I hope that was clear. For your reference, there's a sample of this report in the project funding agreement, which you all should get familiar with this agreement because there's a lot of reference to it in Exhibit C of the project funding agreement for your reference. Next slide, please, Alex. Now, invoices must be sent to your contract managers. Now, depending on which municipality you are, it's either Alina or Alex. And as Althea previously mentioned, we're in the process of getting a portal up and running. But in the meantime, please send all applicable invoices by email. Now, the following information should be included in your invoices. Invoice number, invoice date, project name, project ID, and the total of the invoice amount. That is to say the maximum not to exceed advance for the specific phase. Next slide, please. Now, in addition to that, you need to have if it's applicable to the project. Now, depending on what kind of project you have, you may also need to include updated progress schedules, backup documents from contractors, subcontractors, invoices for labor, payroll, purchases, and a statement regarding the amount of CBE participation to date. And you should also have a financial attestation signed either by the CFO, finance director, or city manager. Next slide, please. Now, as per the project funding agreement, the following costs are ineligible and they should be paid by the municipality with non-surtax funds. And we're talking about costs that are incurred prior to the execution of the agreement, costs incurred after expiration of the agreement, and costs not included in the project description. Again, we're referring to the project funding agreement, Exhibit A. If you need to look at that for further information, I would suggest you do that. And Exhibit B, the funding parameters, and the amounts that the contractor, consultant, or subcontractor are responsible to pay, credit, or reimburse to the municipality. Also ineligible are amounts received under a contract or agreement that's not approved by the county. Audit costs that were incurred by the municipality are not eligible, neither are legal and accounting fees and expenses. costs for operation, support, or maintenance of the project, or nor interest expenses, those are also not eligible. And if municipality staff, if their personnel costs are indirectly performed from the project, those are ineligible costs. Next slide, please. Now, prior to the Surtax grant closeout, any funding that's provided by the county that's exceeding the actual amount paid by the municipality for the project must be promptly refunded to the county. And this happens when the municipality discovers this, or if we do a review on the map side and we discover it also, then within 60 days after the completion of the project, whichever comes first, the overpayment has to be refunded to the county. The next slide. Financial reporting requirements, and I believe Lena had touched on these previously. You will be required to submit a detailed financial report, and there's an example of this report in the project funding agreement, Exhibit C. And this report will be on a quarterly basis and one on an annual basis. There's also the annual financial report, which must be audited and certified by an independent CPA. So basically that's like your external audit. And if the municipality does not comply with these requirements, this is a basis for withholding or limiting future funding for the project. Next slide, please. So we have certified business enterprise CPA firms. And we will, as MAP administration, we will be utilizing certified business enterprise CPA firms to promote the overall program goal of using local certified firms on Surtax funded projects and initiatives. And the CBE CPA firms, they will also be assisting with the overall financial monitoring of the projects. Next slide, please. We will now have Nicole Khalil and Tashana Williams. They're in the Public Information Office Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret, and good afternoon, everybody. We're so excited to be at this point to show you what the branding and marketing looks like for the program. I just want to give you a little spirit or meaning to understand where we come from before I dive down into the technicalities of the slides. And that is to know that everything was planned with great intention. Matt Broward's community outreach and education goal is to use all the pieces that you're going to see as opportunities to demonstrate to the public who voted for the penny, who spend that penny every day, whether it's on their gas, their coffee, or their dry cleaning here in Broward County, to clearly see and appreciate where their transportation surtax is being invested. So now, Alex, if you'll go to the next slide. So now that when we get down into these details, please just keep that in mind. And I'm just going to read through, and I'll be glad to answer questions when we get towards the end of the workshop today. So Surtax branding and marketing. In section 6.5 of your PFA, you've got an area that will go over the details of what all of this looks like. And know that it's not just something, these aren't just things we're asking of the cities, but these are things that the county projects are also implementing side by side. So throughout the county, there's consistency. And again, the goal is for the public to easily recognize where their surtax money is being invested. We understand that a lot of people on this call might not be the same working group who will be the ones to implement the branding and marketing. So know that we have reached out to all the public information officers, community marketing people, whatever your municipality may have titled that area or department. And we've had one-on-one calls, we've had trainings, and we are very excited about June 17th, where we're going to have an overall education day where we can share like-minded people, go over the technicalities, provide all the tools your city people will need to execute the surtax branding. Next slide, please, Alex. So this is our new logo. A lot of you, most of you were aware of the Penny for Transportation logo. That was the education campaign. So now that we're in a full-fledged funding program, we have new branding, and this is what the primary logo looks like. Next slide, please, Alex. We've also created a secondary and a tertiary option for the cities to use. I've already worked with a lot, we have already worked with a lot of the cities, and a lot are just wanting to use that primary logo, but know that you also have the option of using what you see over in the left. It's our municipal cooperative logo. And you would, as you see it there, just simply replace the municipality name with your city's name. And next, over to the right, we have a municipal project logo. So we'll see a breakdown in the next slide of what and how you'll use these. Next slide, please, Alex. So here's your reference guide, and this is in the book that Lena mentioned, which you'll receive a copy of and will also be available on our website. But just again, the overall explanation is the one on the top is the primary logo. The second is your municipal cooperative logo, and which again, at the following slide after this, you'll see where your options are, where you can use one, the other, or both. And then the last one is the project logo, where in the green upper right, you would have the opportunity to insert, for instance, if it was a greenway, you would, we have actually a bucket of icons, and this is the kit that I had mentioned we're going to be preparing your public information officers with on June 17th. And then in that upper right arch, they would have the opportunity to talk about what the project is. So this is really, you know, a lot of this is going to be up to the city and your judgment call on how much detail you want to exchange with the public using these logos, and just know that our office exists to support you, help you answer your questions. We're very aware that some cities are lucky enough to have a graphics person on staff, and some people, you know, some cities, the city managers and managers are wearing 4 or 5 hats. We are here to help you, whatever the case may be. Next slide, please, Alex. So there are a lot of details. I won't read through the entire grid. It'd be a little lengthy, but know that we have thought through the process of construction projects. I probably should have mentioned in my introduction, I was with the Department of Transportation for 8 years, worked on a variety of projects with SunPass, a lot of branding experience. So I've lived through it, and that experience has paid off because when we developed this, I was able to, again, live through the process and know when you might need what. So this grid is available in that guideline book. I'll just kind of give you a second to look over it, maybe jot any questions you have down so we can discuss them at the end. Just know that the second column, where it gives scenarios, it's pretty much walking you through the life cycle of what a project looks like physically on the streets, as well as what it would look like in the world of communications when talking to your residents and businesses about projects, whether it's on a website, through a social media post, or on a flyer or something similar. Next slide, Alex. So this is just a description of what the process may look like. When Surtax is the primary majority source of funds for a project, MAP Broward logo or the cooperative logo could be applied. Pre-construction notices, project signages, any other communications which will be used to update the public. Municipal point of contact is the project manager. I believe Althea spoke on this, where she was clear to mention that we are not managing the projects, but you, indeed, the cities or CEIs, whoever you hire, will be. They would be the contact listed here. Names of elected officials should not be placed on the Surtax project signage, communications, or memorialized signage. And again, this is back to the basis of transparency and the goals of our program in making sure that the community outreach and education goal on these signs or any other communication piece is to demonstrate to the public where their surtax money is being spent. In situations where projects receive blended funding, multiple logos may be used. So an upcoming example of this could be when a project also receives possibly DOT funding or there's a mix thereof, and we would address those situations in fair placement when they come. Next slide, Alex. So here are some nice visuals of what a branded surtax project could look like. We call it memorialized branding. So the memorialized branded options are pictured below. Again, just examples. Municipal project types can range from bike ped greenway to community shuttles, rehab maintenance, intersections, school safety zones, to bridges, to transit. So again, large and small, we feel that we have realistically walked ourselves through the project's phases as well as the various project types. I'm hoping a lot of you have already had the opportunity to go through our project dashboard and explore, the 16 different project types, of which in the second bullet, a few are mentioned. Third bullet here on this slide, county public works surtax funded projects are using similar memorialized signage. So again, the county is working with you side by side. So through and consistently, surtax projects are similarly recognized throughout the county. Last bullet, permanent signage options will include sidewalk inserts, the embedded tiles you see down there and diameter stamps, post signs, which is the third box there, and community shuttles. We know there are already a lot of shuttles out there with previous branding or possibly no branding, but that is a goal of ours to move forward and get the updated surtax branding on the shuttles. Next slide, Alex. So lastly, project construction boards. We are actually working with a few cities already who are getting their boards up. They look great. It's been a very easy process. And this is just a quick bullet. Anybody who's been through this process knows that this list is pretty standard. The only differences you might notice are that rather than the city logo, we would offer you that cooperative logo. In 2 of the 3 cases where I'm working with some cities on their boards, they actually just said, let's just use the primary logo and that's good enough. But where you do want your city name, and we understand that, and that's why we provided you that option, you can use the cooperative logo you saw on my second slide. Project cost, contact, start, finish date, type of project, location, those are all pretty standard. This is definitely one of those areas where we want to make ourselves available as you're putting these signs together. We understand, again, you may or may not have a graphics person on hand to provide the file to your CEI or construction team to have the board made. So feel free to loop us in as soon as you see fit, and we'll help make sure that the boards are developed and accurate. We should definitely point out what would not go on a project board, and that would be the name of elected officials, city or city officials, such as commissioners, mayors, etc. We aren't even putting the county logos on surtax funded projects if they are indeed fully surtax funded. So again, just repeating and know that the county is consistently doing what we're also asking of the municipalities. Next slide, Alex. So here I'd like to transition over to Gretchen so she can go over closing and next steps.
Thank you so much, Nicole, Alex, Lena, Margaret, and Althea. And for those of you that are participating, I can't believe that we're almost to 100 participants on this workshop, and we've gotten some really great questions in the chat at the very end. I'm going to ask Lena to go ahead and read the questions aloud. Again, this will help those that are only able to watch the recording of this later follow all of the questions and the responses. So as we mentioned at the very outset of the workshop, just in case you joined after, this is the first of 2 planned workshops. The next is scheduled for June 16th in the morning. We will be getting an Outlook invitation to all of those who are participating in this workshop as soon as this is over. The draft guidebook is going to be emailed to all of you as soon as this workshop concludes. I do want to caution those of you that have very restrictive size limitations in your municipalities for the receipt of attachments. If you don't receive it, please reach out and we'll try to find a way to do it to you through a Dropbox or a zip file. We are looking to hear from you about the content of the guidebook. So we'd like you to respond. There's actually a little feedback tool on page 3 of that guidebook by June 3rd at the close of business, so that we can compile all of that information into a spreadsheet and offer you input and responses at the second workshop. We'd like the guidebook to be finished the week of June 20th and be able to publish it on our website. We'll also make it available to those of you who would like to have it by email. Just let us know and we'd be happy to do that. Next slide, Alex. Okay, so at this point, we're going to open it up for questions and answers. The first that we're going to do is we're going to go through the chat. I'm going to ask Lena to read the questions, and then we will respond on the record. If we are unable to fully respond to your question, we will jot it down. We'll make sure that we provide the answers in writing later.
Okay.
So with that, go ahead, Lena.
So the first question is it suggested that the municipality interact with the project management liaison for review draft solicitations prior to submitting to the MAP County Attorney's offices?
Okay, so this is a difficult question because there are 2 times that the solicitation documents have to be submitted. So to make this as clear and concise as possible, the first time that a municipality would submit their solicitation documents would be prior to the project funding agreement being negotiated. So the solicitation documents would be submitted to the Office of Economic and Small Business Development so that they can assign a CBE goal. If it's applicable, of course, if you have a small project, a little planning project, a small design project, if your project is under $250,000, that is not necessary. But those solicitation documents are still submitted to the Surtax legal team as part of the overall negotiation of the project funding agreement. So that's the first time. And at that point, you would not have any interaction with the project management office. I think Althea did a really good job of describing that they kind of they come into this process once you've actually completed your solicitation and you are ready to issue an NTP or have already issued an NTP. Now, in her presentation, Althea did mention that they would make themselves available to a municipality during the solicitation process. If they wanted some assistance, they would have to ask formally for that assistance from the program management office. So it's an option at the second point. So after you've done your project funding agreement and you're ready to go out to the street with it, if you'd like the project management office to take a look at it, you can request their review in writing, but it is certainly not required. So I hope that that fully answered your question. And if it did not, please feel free to ask again. And if Roxanne is on the line and wants to chime in, I'm happy to have you do that. Roxanne, are you there? Okay, so we'll move on to the next question, Lena.
Okay, next question is, are the invoices approved by the county for payment or is it for reporting purposes?
Good question. So the invoices are requirements of the next advance. So if you've seen a copy of the the standard form project funding agreement, you'll see that every single type of project, whether it be planning, design, construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance construction, they all receive an advance. The amount of that advance will depend on the size and type of your project. So you're going to receive an advance shortly after your project funding agreement is fully executed and placed into the county's financial system. And then you have to submit those invoices in order to be eligible for your next advance. And if you are getting all of your money up front, which is occurring in a few very limited circumstances because of the size of the project, then you would have to provide your invoices at the conclusion of the project as part of your closeout. If that did not answer your question, please raise your hands and I will try one more time. We good? Okay. Lena, go ahead to the next question, please.
Can a municipality be reimbursed for expenses incurred after Cycle 1 projects were approved, but before a PFA is executed?
No. Very clearly, as part of the Second Amendment to the Global Interlocal Agreement, it states that there is no reimbursement of any costs incurred by a municipality prior to a fully executed project funding agreement. That's why we've been letting everyone know that you will not be eligible for reimbursement on Cycle 1 projects. That is not the case for future cycles. In future cycles, you are eligible for reimbursement of expenses once a project is included in the 5-year plan and approved. But for Cycle 1, no. Until the project funding agreement is fully executed, all expenses are at your own risk.
Next question is, should we include the logo on solicitation documents?
Great question, and it is not a requirement, but certainly we would be pleased if you would.
Okay, next one, will the PowerPoint be available after the presentation?
Yes, we will turn it into a PDF to make it as small as possible, and we will include it when we distribute the draft guidebook.
Is there a specific size and shape of sign in terms of the branding?
It will depend on the project type, and I'm going to ask that municipalities work with Nicole Khalil with respect to if you want to do a post sign for a particular type of project. What we would do is go ahead and work with you to order that and make sure that you had it in time for installation.
Next question is, can you place a link on the MAP website and we can download? And I think this is referring to the guidebook.
Sure, absolutely.
Next question, does the city pay to get signs made? Are we reimbursed?
No, the county, as was specified in the presentation, the county will pay for markers, signage, wraps, decals, anything that we are requiring as far as a branding, certainly for permanent branding, as well as during construction. The county will pay for it, will manufacture it, unless you really, really want to do it yourself. And then we can have a discussion about that.
Can you give some examples of city costs that should be submitted with financial reports to demonstrate leverage funds? Is a city responsible for reporting internal labor costs as leverage dollars if the labor costs are directly related, for example, CEI?
Margaret, do you want to take that one?
Sure, Gretchen, thanks. So in speaking of leverage funds, we're speaking about funding sources. So say you have a project that's a Surtax project and it's being funded also by other funding sources, whether it's local or state or federal, then that's what we're asking to report so that we can have some information on that, because we have to provide that information to the oversight board, and there is an amount that we are promising that will be leverage funds over the 30-year period, and that's approximately 2.5 billion. So that's why we're trying to keep track of that, and we need to keep track of that. I don't know if that answers the question, but as far as leverage funds, it's funding from other sources.
So let me try to augment that, because I heard internal labor costs, including for CEI. So if a municipal staff person is directly working on a Surtax funded project directly, then that person's time and effort would be part of the invoicing process. Yes, because those payroll documents, whether it's for a municipal staff person or for one of your contractors or subs, is all part of what is submitted with your invoices to document the expenses and true up that advance that you've received. And, you know, again, to go back to what Margaret was saying, it is incredibly important to us because it is one of the things that we are responsible for the entire program, both county and municipal projects, is tracking all other sources of funding that are coming together to create a whole project with the Surtax. So if a municipality, there are quite a few instances, especially in cycle one, where municipalities received awards for projects that have ineligible expenses in them. So the municipality agreed that they were going to pay for betterments, or they were going to pay for aspects of the project that would benefit private properties, where the surtax is paying for the rest of the project. We just need to make sure that we can quantify the amount of municipal investment in the project that's matching up against the surtax. Several of you have projects that were funded by MPO dollars or by the FDOT, and the surtax is just finishing it up. Wilton Manors is a project that comes to mind. We need to make sure that we have the total amount of the project that was funded with other sources, so that Margaret can track that and report on that both to the county and to the oversight board. I hope that answers that question.
The next question is, what exactly is a plan of record? Can you provide an example?
No, that is not in my purview. That is in the program management office's purview, but I can certainly make sure that a plan of record example is provided. I'm sure Althea or Roxanne will be happy to provide one.
Next, we have, can we charge the CPA cost for the annual audit review to the Surtax project, or is that a city expense?
It is a city expense. If you look at your project funding agreement under ineligible costs, all accounting costs are ineligible to be paid for by the Surtax grant. Your annual audit is much broader than the Surtax projects that you are receiving.
What is defined as directly working on a project for reimbursing labor costs? Is project management a labor cost? For example, time spent on the field verifying construction contractor work?
That is a question that I'm going to have to defer to legal. I believe that would be considered an indirect cost, but I'm going to get an answer. Is there anyone from legal on the line that's able to answer that? Hearing none, I will get a written response to that and share it with everyone.
If a municipality incurs costs for a project before a PFA is executed, can or should those costs be included in leverage funds in the Surtax ledger?
Yes.
And then the final question is, can we receive a copy of a sample or draft funding agreement?
Your legal team if you have a legal counsel, which all of you do, they have received that. A standard form agreement was circulated quite a while ago. What I will also make sure is that a standard form project funding agreement is on our website and kind of easily accessible. We do have one there, I believe, but it may not be something that it's easy for you all to find.
We just received one more question. Can municipalities utilize in-house staff or CEI services?
Yes.
And those are all of the questions in the chat. If anyone else wants to verbalize their questions.
Sorry, Lena, let me qualify the last answer. If your internal staff are qualified to do that and you have engineers on staff, yes, we have always expressed a desire to see municipalities able to do projects in-house if they have the capacity to do so.
We just got one more question. Is it planned that the current MAP auditor, or will it be the county auditor office performing a review of our ledgers?
So right now, the group that we're talking about as far as financial monitoring and contract monitoring is inside of MAP administration. And it's really specific to your project funding agreement. So it would be Margaret, it would be the CBE, CPA firms that Margaret referred to that are really here to try to help process invoices quickly and try to make sure that this money is flowing and that we are keeping these projects moving. There is always the potential for the county auditor, which is kind of an independent entity within Broward County. They do not report to the county administrator, and they have independent authority to audit anything at any time. So if they decided that they wanted to come in and do an audit of the entire Surtax program or just a component of it or a specific project, they certainly have the authority to do that. And that would happen outside of MAP administration. There's also the potential, as we mentioned in an earlier slide, that the Inspector General could decide that they wanted to come in. We have our own audit firm, which does our single audit, and they do a specific independent audit of the Surtax fund at the request of the Oversight Board. So there are a variety of different avenues for a financial audit, but what we were specifically referring to today would just be the monitoring and the processing of payments and invoices that's part of the project funding agreement. And that happens here in MAP admin.
We have two more. Under funding parameters of the ILA, it states that municipality staff or other personnel costs in directly performing the project is ineligible. Please reconfirm how this pertains to CEI.
Okay, so construction engineering inspections that are being done by staff of a municipality is a direct expense of the project. And I confirmed that earlier this week, but I also encouraged the municipality that asked the question to make sure that their legal counsel is communicating with our legal team, okay? Because those are the interpretation of a project funding agreement is a legal interpretation. And so I am just giving you the best information that I have available, but those are legal questions that have to be answered by people who practice law, which I do not. The interpretation of what an indirect project expense is has to be managed from your lawyer to our lawyers.
Next question, is managing the CEI or design consultants by municipal forces eligible for reimbursement?
Again, there is no reimbursement, so we do not reimburse. We advance the funding and then we true it up. And questions related to what an eligible expense is and what is a direct or indirect expense is a legal discussion. I will tell you that it is the intention to allow municipalities that have qualified staff to perform the services that are necessary to get these projects done. Those questions need to come from your legal team for a response from our legal team.
Those are all the questions in the chat.
Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to say? As I promised, we're nowhere near 4 o'clock. So again, if you have anything else that you think of afterwards, we will make sure the latest Surtax audit. It's on our website. We just presented it to the Oversight Board at our last meeting as well. So if you go to the map.broward.org and you go to the most recent Oversight Board meeting, you'll see it there. You can also watch the presentation that was done by RSM, which is the audit firm. Any other questions at all? We're here. We're happy to assist you at any time. Oh, well, thank you very much. We very much look forward to collaborating with you as well. And for those of you that don't have executed project funding agreements, I would like to encourage you to make sure that you talk to your legal counsel and look at the checklist, make sure that you are submitting the information that's necessary. We do have quite a few municipalities with executed project funding agreements, and we expect to be seeing some funding go out, hopefully, if not by the end of this week, early next week. So very exciting. So we want to thank you for your time, because without you, this program doesn't work. This has to be a collaborative experience to be effective. Many of you have already provided us with valuable insights and suggestions with respect to the public project dashboard. This is intended to be a tool for all of our municipal partners, your elected officials, so you can filter by municipality. You can also now filter, this is a new feature that I wanted to bring to your attention. You can now filter by projects that are managed by a municipality or managed by the county. So before, when you selected your city of Hollandale Beach and you saw all the projects, it wasn't clear which projects were county projects and municipal projects unless you were really familiar with the types of project IDs that municipalities in the county were using. So now you can filter when you're in your city, and you can actually see which projects are city projects and which projects are county projects. If you go ahead and scan that QR code at the bottom of the slide on the right and play around in the dashboard, we'd love to get your feedback. We certainly hope that you utilize this when you are talking to your electeds, because I know that this is something that many municipal elected officials have asked for. Certainly the county commissioners have asked for it too when they're out in the community. They get a question. This is a really nice tool. They can get an answer right away. They don't have to wait, call somebody. So if there are things that you'd like to see or functionalities that would make it more user-friendly, we'd love to have your insight. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Nicole to close us out.
Hi again. So I just wanted to go over these opportunities we have, stressing the importance to communicate with the public and share all the good news on their Surtax projects. Again, we've had the pleasure of meeting with just about every public information officer or communications person with every municipality. And there's already been such great cooperation and collaboration where we gave them the box of tools we have, and then they took them and made them their own. there's some cities have already created a tab on their website specific to their surtax projects. They've linked things like our inaugural report. They've made sure that they're following us on social media. We've already done the same. And even on your personal accounts, if you want to keep up with surtax projects, we will take all the followers we can get. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and all the accounts across the board are called @MapBroward. You can come to our YouTube station and check out our oversight board meeting videos. We'll, as we're going through the program, you'll start seeing project videos. We have a corporate video coming up soon. On Instagram, you'll see more image heavy sort of posts. We look forward to going out into the cities and photographing your surtax projects in the very near future. I'm hoping most of you, and if you haven't, please email us at email me personally and khalil@broward.org to subscribe to our newsletter. Our first issue went out, and it was just a nice highlight on how to find surtax related information. And that's another tool a lot of the cities have uploaded to either their website tab or have taken pieces and incorporated it in their city newsletter and then shared it with their residents or businesses. We have a list, but it's always more extensive and better reach when the city shares information with their residents. It might even be better received because they know who they are and where it's coming from. So again, for technical assistance, graphics, even if it's to help put together some social media posts, that is why our office exists. Tashana Williams, who didn't get the opportunity to speak today, her and I work very closely. She's very talented with graphics and creative with putting together social media. So if one of us can't help you, the other certainly can. And if you happen to bump into any of your PIOs or communication people in the halls and you want to let them know you were on this great workshop today and you heard about the marketing event on June 17th and encourage them to attend. We've got a handful of RSVPs now, but we still have a few spots available, and we'd love to be able to have all those people in the room and share surtax information and have a meet and greet as the world becomes a little bit more normal. It was a pleasure meeting everybody, and thank you for logging in today.
And I just wanted to let all of you know that at this wonderful special event that Nicole is hosting on the 17th, there's going to be an opportunity to really deep dive into the dashboard. There's an actual municipal atlas for every single municipality, and teach you how to utilize it a little bit more. So please, please, please encourage those folks that do that type of work in your municipalities to attend. I did notice that Mr. Koletka is on the phone, is on the line, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to share with the municipalities about the current rating and ranking process while you have so many people here. Mr. Koletka, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Sure. Was there anything that you wanted to share?
Actually, I was about to transmit after this meeting to you the deliverables for you to examine for a Friday meeting before I make any announcement to the general public.
Okay, great. So I thought it was important for you all to know that we are on schedule, that we are expecting to have the latest rate rankings and recommendations by the end of this month as required under our agreement. We'll keep you posted on that as well. And with that, I just want to thank all of you again for your collaboration, and really looking forward to working with you on this important project. Did we have any other questions that came in, Lena, before we sign off?
I don't see any other questions now.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I will follow up with the legal team on those legal related questions. I'll try to make sure that we update you all as soon as possible, and we'll also add the responses to our frequently asked questions on our website. If you go to our website and you look under the Municipal Partners tab, where all our resources are, you will see frequently asked questions document, and we'll make sure that we add some of the questions from today into that document for you. And with that, have a great rest of your afternoon.